What is rigor mortis? Rigor mortis is the chemical change the body goes through within a few hours after death and lasts only for a few days. That really doesn't help or explain what rigor mortis is, what the chemical change is, and how it affects the body. So let's dive a little deeper and go into the chemical and physical aspects of rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is due to the buildup of myosin that binds up with the actin, causing the muscles to lock up and become unmovable. When someone dies, their muscles stop contracting and relaxing. They stop working, pretty much to keep it simple. For muscle contractions to work, you have to have actin, myosin, and ATP, and they all have to be present. But when the ATP is no longer present, the muscles cannot unlock or relax. ATP, pretty much is no longer produced after death. The myosin loses its affinity or its bind to ATP. Due to the lack of ATP, myosin changes its affinity or has a greater affinity for actin and binds to the actin, causing a buildup of myosin, which results in the muscle stiffening, or as we call it, rigor mortis. Chemical changes involve accumulation and breakdown of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. ATP is a facilitator of muscle movement. When ATP is depleted, full rigors results. Later on, a few days later, the loss of rigors happens due to the muscle fiber decomposition. There are 3 stages of rigor mortis. The first stage is the primary flaccidity, where the rigors develops and is hardly noticeable. Then you have the active period, and this is the stiffening of the muscles. Then you have the third, which is the secondary flaccidity, and that's where the rigor passes from the body. Depending on the cause of death, environmental temperatures, and activity prior to death, the rigor can occur sooner or be delayed. Those who are more muscular have a more significant onset and stiffening of the muscles than those with a lesser muscle mass. To help better understand, we need to know what these chemicals are and how they perform in the body. So we have ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. This is the energy that is produced in the reaction of glucose with oxygen. ATP powers our cells. It's our energy. In the living body, ATP is bound to myosin, which is the result of muscle movement, results in muscle movement. Myosin is a fibrous protein that assists with muscle movement and again binds with the ATP. When myosin loses its ATP due to death and cell death, it loses its ability to hold its bind to that ATP. And because there's no ATP, there's nothing there for it to bind to. Because of that loss, myosin turns and changes its affinity or has a higher affinity for the actin, which is a globular protein that binds with myosin and assists with muscle movement. But with the buildup of the myosin, it causes a stiffening of the muscles, or as we call it, rigor mortis. After a few days, what ATP remains in the body will bind to the myosin, and it causes the myosin to disengage from the actin, and that causes the muscles to relax. This is called the unlocking stage. When a body comes in that is in full rigors, as we say, there's a lot of challenging when it comes to embalming. We have the positioning of the body. You never know what position they may come in, what position they were when they died, or how long they laid there or sat there. Lots of different positions when you find them sometimes. The setting of the features can be hard due to the jaw being set, distribution of the embalming fluids, the drainage all to stenosis of the arteries and veins. Tissue tends to swell real easily. The pH of the tissue causes some issues also. tissue may not firm well after the passing of rigors because you just really don't have anything in there to firm up anymore. Another issue is tissue firmness caused by rigors can be also a false sign of fixation due to the preservatives, so you have to be really careful and pay attention to these things. So, again, what is rigor mortis? Rigor mortis is pretty much starts when the body dies. Your body is no longer producing ATP. The myosin is no longer bound to the ATP, and it has a greater affinity to the actin, so it binds to the actin. With this buildup of myosin, it causes the stiffness or rigors of the muscles. A few days later, after the ATP, leftover ATP that's floating around binds with myosin, and this disengaging the actin and does a relaxation of the muscles. The good news is that the condition does not recur once it is relieved. So that's a plus. Thank you.